So, a lot of goal setting ignores whether your body has the capacity to support what you're asking of it.
You've just tuned in to Rebel Wellness. I'm your host, Kaylee, also known as Coach Kales, integrative clinical nutritionist in training, fitness pro of over a decade, and the woman who refused to accept normal when my body was screaming otherwise. If you're the high achiever who's been told your blood work is perfect while you're secretly Googling why you feel like garbage, if you're crushing it at work but your energy crashes at 3 p.m. and your cycle just feels off, or maybe you've been gaslit by providers who dismiss your symptoms as just stress, and you know something deeper is going on. You're my people. Here's where functional medicine meets real talk strategy. I created this podcast as your resource to take back the driver's seat on your health journey. Women are incredibly intuitive, and I'm here to help you reconnect with that voice. This isn't about perfection or another protocol to fail at. It's about finally getting the answers your body has been begging for and the tools that actually work in your real, messy, beautiful life. Less noise, more nourishment. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the show, Rebels, and welcome to a brand new year. I don't know about you, but 2026 just feels like a good year. And it's actually kind of funny because I've been telling some of my girlfriends as we've been, texting each other, Happy New Year's as we do, that I think that this is a good year because it's an even year. Like all the numbers are even when you add them up. So I've decided that that is enough for why it should be a good year. As if even numbers were innately a positive thing. But for me, it is. So that's all that matters. We're coming into the new year with that kind of energy, right? So anyways, today's episode, I really wanted to start the year kind of discussing something that is a concept that I've been pondering on my own over the last several years. Many of you know over the last couple years, I've been exploring more of a soft girl season, but not necessarily in the sense where I am completely just wallowing in, some people think of soft girl seasons as like embracing your feminine energy, which is fantastic. And that's a lot more of what I've been doing because I live in my masculine, not only because I was raised mainly like by a father figure. So more of that was modeled to me. And my grandmother was always like a very strong, kind of more in a masculine sense type of personality as well. So when I kind of think about like how I formed my behaviors and my characteristics, I'm definitely like an ambitious go-getter and I get shit done. And so for me, the last couple of years leaning into more of a feminine state and resting and creating and nourishing myself better has felt really good, but also really foreign. And so coming into this new year, I didn't really want to have that same energy as the previous 2 years where I've been trying to really like practice allowing myself to be in that kind of rest and recovery zone. And still embody that though, because it's not all or nothing. You can't just be all one side and then all the other, because that's how we get into imbalance. And a lot of my brand and my ethos, so to speak, has always been how can you find what balance works for you? So it's not perfect 50-50. Your balance could work better with like a 60-40 or something like that. And a lot of people are like, well, kills like that innately isn't balanced. But we're not necessarily talking like straight numbers right now. We are talking like how it works for you as an individual. So this year, I want to kind of encourage you and welcome your curiosity in finding that for yourself as well, because sometimes I think we get inundated with social media and the pressures of other people around us, like giving off this certain perfect lifestyle energy. And it's, we all know a lot of stuff on social media is fake. It's great that people have gotten a lot more authentic and sharing their struggles. But then there's that part of us, right? That kind of is just like, ew, like, no, I only want to see you doing well because for some reason it kind of motivates me. I think at least like you think to yourself, like it motivates me to see you doing well because then like I want to do more things. But it has a toxic side where we also then can't embrace that the ugly stuff is also important. And so thinking about coming into this year and exploring that for yourself and making this year a stronger year that you really lean into self-reflection and grow from it, I think that's going to be an awesome way to head into 2026. And with that said, if you want to, I have last year, I started this new kind of ritual of making you guys 5 really great, insightful journal prompts. I'm a big journal girly. I know a lot of you guys listening have told me before that you also are journal girlies. And my old newsletter that used to be monthly, I had a whole little section of journal prompts every month. And I don't know how many people actually did them. I do know several people who would tell me about it, but it was something that I really love doing for myself and wanted to share with you guys because I think if you can start the year even just looking at the prompt titles and thinking about it for yourself, that is such a great way to start what I was just talking about, like having more self-reflection this year and being more intentional about what you really want and how to get there. And so I've made a brand new batch of prompts for you on a really easy little PDF download that you can find in the show notes or on my website, which on that note, my brand new gorgeous website is live finally. I'm so excited to share it with you. It's been a really arduous, but in a positive way, I guess. Maybe arduous isn't the right term then, but it's a love child of everything that is the progression of my business and the evolution, so to speak. And I was so grateful to work with Salve Pasquale of Lines of Origin. Her brand company is none other, like the best. It's the best. And we made something so beautiful that encompasses me in my 30s, as a professional. And so I really hope that you guys love my website. It's best, I think, on desktop or on your laptop. It's like you can see the whole thing, but it's still beautiful on mobile. We made sure that everything still looks good because most of us access websites by mobile at this point now. But you'll find under my freebies section tons of free downloadables, brand new ones, some that were reworked that I had like last year or the year before. But a lot of people have been waiting for my sourdough guide, my simple sourdough guide, which is the exact recipe and method that I learned in person with a chef out in Monterey here, where we learned the easiest, most consistently good sourdough recipe. It's not going to be one of your like super bougie, cut all fancy looking sourdoughs. Like you can go on YouTube for that stuff and probably waste a lot of dough blobs. This is if you really don't want to waste your dough and you want to finally be able to make sourdough. It is so simplified. So head over to my freebie shelf on the website if you want to download that for free. It will be $4.99 starting in February. So if you're listening to this after February 2026, it's going to be a small fee because it took quite a while for me to put it together. And I am going to be adding in a video resource so you can kind of watch how I do it to kind of perfect form. So therefore, it's going to be a small fee, but majority, I give you guys so much free content so that I could support, the podcast and all of this for you, or rather, I do a lot of things for free because I want to make things accessible for you, but I do need to support the business. And so will be some lower cost guides that are going to be getting launched, as well as some amazing courses that are going to be available for you as well while I'm still finishing grad school. So the journal prompts, the sourdough guide, I have a brand new postpartum gut guide and several other things that you may have not seen available on that freebie shelf. So go ahead and check that out. You're going to really like them, I think. So let me know if you do. And I would love to see you share with me on social media if you make that sourdough. If you make a sourdough and it comes out good, because it's such a great skill. It's honestly like, even though it's so like eye roll, everybody did it during the pandemic kind of vibe, it's a great skill that I think anybody should have. And it's like the first bread that you will probably have that you don't get like bloated and feeling gross from. Like sourdough bread is the most natural way of making bread, and it's so much better for your gut, and it gives you a lot of nutrients because wheat does actually have a lot of nutrients in it. And I even link on there all of the favorite tools that I use for my sourdough. And I also share my favorite sources for ordering a sourdough starter to your house, and also my favorite flour. So go ahead and check that out on the freebie shelf, but check out the website altogether. It's a beautiful website. Join my newsletter if you haven't joined it already. Everything's going to be in the show notes, so make sure you don't miss that. All right, so with all that housekeeping done, because we needed to get some of those big 2026 updates for you, because this was a big launch year for me. I took a little pause last year while, in the bulk of my grad school, and kind of reworking this beautiful baby that is called Nourish Within, which is my brand. It is trademarked. It took a long time. It basically took the entire year to get trademarked. And so that is Kale's new nutrition brand, and it's going to be a lot more focus on preconception fertility nutrition as well. So if you are somebody who might be in their 20s or is in their 30s, and in several years or 5 or 10 years, you do want the option of having a healthy baby, preconception nutrition is so important, and I've become very passionate about it, especially going through the trenches with a lot of my friends, even in our early 30s, struggling with fertility and not knowing that there's so much you can do years before conceiving that will make a huge difference in the quality of your pregnancy and the health of your baby. Because, I'm going to do another episode on this topic soon to give you a little bit more background about preconception nutrition in general. So it'll be a really fantastic resource episode soon, so stay tuned. But something that's really important to think about why it matters is that a lot of people think that they can nowadays just show up, try to get pregnant, and assume that it's just going to be a normal, standard, healthy baby. And for a lot of people, it might. But for a lot of people, we're learning that it's not. We're having a lot of complicated pregnancies, a lot of birth defects that we haven't seen in a long time. We're seeing a lot of challenges that really can be avoided or reduced by your nutrition and your lifestyle before conception. So that's why, this is a really important topic to me, and you're going to see a lot more of that in the coming year and through my services. So if that's something that resonates with you, if you want to be ahead of the curve when you're preparing for pregnancy and have I don't necessarily want to say an easier fertility journey, but potentially, a lot of my friends who have followed a lot of my guidance so far and clientele, they've had much better pregnancies because we've really spent the time to figure out how to prepare their body best through, nourishment and nutrition, lifestyle factors, removing a lot of environmental toxins that they don't even realize are impacting their fertility, and all that kind of stuff. So stay tuned for all of that. But what I want to talk about in today's episode is kind of like the winter paradox of that pressure to start the year strong. And I also want to give some advice and some thoughts on how to set goals that honor your winter and your cycle and the overall energy capacity that you have. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So first, let's go back to that winter paradox. So we get that pressure of January 1. You may have seen, especially if you follow any of the biohacking communities or even just health guru space or fitness space, any of those spaces, I often see a lot of people talk about you got 2 more months left in the year, or what are you going to do with those days? And have you hit your goals yet? Or, okay, we're coming into a new year, you better have your goals set and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not going to be so extreme that I'm just screw the goals. You know what I mean? My first ever episode of the podcast several years ago was fantastic. I would say everything that I say in that episode is great way to start your year. If you want to stack after this episode, that one, episode 1, is where to go. But with that said, the cultural expectation of January versus how you really feel is something to lean into and pay attention to. So when I talked earlier in this episode in the opening about reflecting and learning your body more intuitively this year, this is a great way for you to kind of rewrite that. Because sometimes we feel we came out of the Thanksgiving Christmas zone, overindulging, not moving very much, not hydrating well. We just really want to hit reset, and that means do all the crazy healthy things possible, right? But sometimes the healthiest thing to do is just realign one little bit at a time. I have to work on this all the time myself. But for example, bring water back into your day, more intentional water. It's cold for a lot of us this time of year. So maybe bringing in some really nice herbal teas. They don't need to be caffeinated. Find some unique ones. Try some new teas. There's so many great teas that you may have never even thought of that make your water taste better and a little bit more welcoming, because I can't tell you how many times my clients every single winter discuss how we are just crap at our water intake because it's cold. You just don't feel like drinking water that much, right? So there's also, the option of some of the electrolyte companies have made like warm beverage versions. I know like Element has their hot chocolate thing. That's fine. Make sure you're drinking a lot of water though, because unless you're keto, you're not, or low carb, you're not going to need that much salt as what's in Element. I pretty much always tell my clients, like, you're not going through water in your body so quickly that you can afford that much sodium, especially if you eat out once a day, or, you salt your food heavily on your own when you cook at home, et cetera, et cetera. So you do just need to pay attention to what electrolytes you buy, because some of them are catering to mineral replenishment for specific dietary situations or athletes. So if you're an athlete and you sweat a lot, you need a lot of sodium. Okay. So like that's okay as well. But if you're not, if you're kind of just more of like I walk daily, I work out 45 minutes a couple times a week, maybe I do like one hot yoga or something, probably lean more towards like an electrolyte. Like from my favorite to recommend nowadays is Just Ingredients. They have fantastic flavors and really good blends that are well made. But companies like Thorne and Designs for Health and such, they have really great blends as well. But I would say flavor wise and quality of ingredients wise, I really like Just Ingredients. But just bring hydration back into your life. Like those are easy ways for you to start getting your body feeling like itself again, because we don't realize that a lot of symptoms that we're feeling is just simply dehydration. I know for myself, I had food poisoning real bad 2 weeks ago, and I can still feel that I have not properly replenished, especially with a couple of events where I did partake in some alcohol. And so for me, I'm even considering going and getting like an IV drip. You don't have to go that extreme. I haven't actually done one before, and I just feel like it could be useful because I had literally such bad food poisoning. I can't tell you guys. It almost felt like I had like an ongoing stomach bug. I'm like, was I fighting salmonella naturally? I have no idea. But I made it out of it. But I still haven't been able to hydrate well, especially because a lot of my water here is reverse osmosis, which means there's no minerals in it. And you don't really hydrate on water that doesn't have minerals in it. Your body can pull the water when you consume completely purified water, will complete its molecular structure by pulling other minerals that do that out of your body. So it will pull a lot of like your magnesium, sodium, potassium, etc. So that's why, a lot of times we say if you're rehydrating, you need electrolytes in it, the minerals, so spring water is also another good option. But a lot of us are drinking bottled water, purified water, because we live in highly dense populated places where that water is not accessible. Like you can't really drink, or you shouldn't really drink water from a hose anymore. Unfortunately, like most places, like especially here in California, your water is just got a lot of different contaminants in it. It's got like microplastics, it's got chlorine, there's a lot of things in there that's why most, like in my neighborhood, every house they installed an RO at your sink, a reverse osmosis machine, because they know that the drinking water isn't good. And so anyways, all that to say, it's very important for you to consider your water. And that's why I bother talking about it so much, because hydration is so foundational. The other great thing to go along with your hydration is consider really aligning your sleep quality. So get back into that routine where you cut off your Netflix at like 10 p.m. at latest. Ideally, if you could do it earlier and start reading a book or doing some stretching or doing some breath work or, whatever, dim your lights. I would say change, if you haven't already, change all of your lights in your house or in the areas that you spend your evenings to warm lights, because that's going to really naturally help your circadian rhythm kind of kick in and know like, hey, it's time to go to sleep. So it's going to kick on that natural melatonin production. If you're somebody who is struggling with that, low dose, good quality melatonin is really great. So they have companies like Pure Encapsulations or Thorne. They have 1 milligram to 3 milligram melatonin. A lot of people feel crappy on melatonin because they take too high of doses. They go for 5 or 10 milligrams, and usually it's like a cheap form. It's made from like some cheap Walmart company or something like that. And that, not to say that in a way that sounds like hoity-toity, but more in a way that like legitimately who sources and creates that melatonin to be bioidentical matters. I've seen a lot of people take like Safeway melatonin and get nightmares, and then take Pure Encapsulations melatonin and be completely fine and have the proper effects. And I've researched that and found it to definitely be more correlated to the quality of who produced that melatonin. So taking melatonin around 7 or 8 p.m. will really help your body get into that deep sleep zone and get sleepy enough by the time it's bedtime, because increasing your deep sleep is going to massively improve how you feel in the morning, how your body recovers overnight, and even fat loss. If fat loss is a goal for you, that's essential. You cannot move fat without good quality sleep. And why I'm talking about sleep even too comes into this winter paradox where we're talking about rest. Winter has always been a time for rest and recovery naturally, even for nature, like as natural as it gets. And so when you're thinking about these expectations of New Year's, where a lot of people are like, okay, new year, new me, I'm going to do all these superhuman motivational things because the holidays did me dirty and I feel like it's the only way to get back on track and come into the next year better and all that junk. And to some extent, sure. But I would say I'm going to invite you to consider thinking about what's actually happening in your body during winter. Less daylight. So your circadian rhythm shifts. You may feel sleepier. You may feel cozier. You may just feel, honestly, like that's why we feel depression a lot in seasonal depression comes around, because now all of a sudden we are in this kind of reflective, introspective zone. And we also have a lot less of that cortisol awakening response because the sun's not coming out for many of us as early and as often. And so we're kind of in this conservation mode, not creation mode. So if you're somebody who naturally feels creative right now, I'm going to guess that you probably live in a part of the world that has sunshine right now, but a lot of people don't, like for those of us here in the US, it's very much winter for us right now. And so this is a time where you kind of want to conserve your energy, take care of yourself, do more stretching and yoga and stuff, and maybe cool it on as much of your heavy lifting if that feels right for you. That's your permission slip. I always say permission slip weird. Permission slip to do that, because it's really important for you to be okay with changing from some sort of rigid routine. And honestly, I've usually found, especially for a lot of my high performance females, that we need that. We need to go into a phase where we let our muscles recover, let our joints have a break, because if you're just going balls to the wall, heavy lifting and high intensity cardio and all that stuff all year round, like sure, you might be able to maintain the same physique all year, but is that really what your body would want or needs? Probably not. That's probably not. That's more of a kind of mental, I don't necessarily want to say like obsession, but it might be some mental rigidity around what's okay for you, because a lot of people like, there's no way I could ever fluctuate 5 pounds or 10 pounds, and maybe your body's like, hey, hormonally, I'd really love to put on 5 pounds right now. And that's why in winter, it's really easy for us to do that, because our body does want more rest and it wants to be nourished more. And having like a really lean, hard body is not a nourished body. I've talked about that many times before in the past, that those bodies on females are what's maybe aesthetically attractive by social media standards or cultural standards, but it's not actually what is the most optimal for vitality, for happiness, for growth, for exploration in your interests, because a lot of times you have to follow a very rigid lifestyle and you don't get to play and you don't get to have fun foods once in a while and yada, yada. And have you ever thought about just being like, hey, like, I'm okay with my body being softer. Like, right now, like this feels good to me. Like I feel better mentally, focusing my attention on raising my littles or, growing and setting up my garden outside before spring or, preparing my career for this next big step and focusing on that. That doesn't mean you have to let yourself go, but it does mean that maybe you have to just pull the reins back a little bit and relax. So winter is an invitation to do just that, to try and look at where you can reduce the strain on your adrenals. So, like, reduce your stressors. Maybe a good goal is to really rewrite some of your habits that are contributing to your stress. Maybe this last year, when you reflect back on the year, you're like, whoa, like, I did not take good care of my stress. Like I still said yes to everything. I still tried to do the most I could for everyone at work. I still let my family walk all over me and I never asked for help. All those kind of things are not going to be sustainable long term. And so thinking about that and pairing it with this new year in the winter might be a great way for you to start like shifting, have those conversations with your partner or your family if you have like older children that are a little more like aware, like, hey, like I really want to work on this for myself. I know that like even though I've always done it this way, it's still something for me that I need to improve upon. And improving upon that means I need to step back from a couple of these things. Who's able to take these over to help us out and work as a team? Just an example, because I know I have a lot of moms who, for us high performance women, we always think like, oh, well, I can do it the best. So why bother, like having my husband do it if I can do it better and I can do it the way that I want it and whatever. That's also an invitation like that. Personally, me, I've had to work on that so hard, like releasing the need to control and have things done exactly my way. That's like one of the biggest things that's improved my life the last couple of years, going into my soft girl season and being like, I'm just going to chill out a little bit about trying to control this whole thing. I'm going to let my husband do it his way, and it's okay if he doesn't do it right or the best. And it's okay. It's whatever. Like we just laughed earlier today that I had set a bunch of sheets from when my whole family was here. I had washed them already. I just needed his help to fold them. And he washed them again because he saw them in there in a bundle and figured that they were dirty. And normally me, like several years ago, would have been like pissed off and like maybe would have belittled him for like not asking or something like that. But instead now we just joke about it and we're like, whatever, they're super clean now. You know what I mean? So little ways like that, like those things stack up. Okay. Like they really do stack up in your life when it comes to your adrenal strain. So I know I have a lot of high performance girlies that listen to my podcast here. So if that's you, let's see how you can make some New Year's resolutions to work on sharing your load, delegating more, being less serious about a lot of things. Sometimes that's just the key, is to give yourself permission to be less serious. And, many ways that this is also supporting your nervous system, because nervous system dysregulation, like the sympathetic overdrive, when we need to be in more of a parasympathetic rest state. Winter is all about parasympathetic rest. So if you're somebody who is struggling with a little bit of like down mood, maybe even some seasonal depression vibes, maybe your nervous system is just feeling like, yo, I'm finally getting to rest, or I'm trying to tell you I need to rest. And I'm not like, your brain is like, why, like, this isn't good. Like something's wrong, because you're just so used to having your nervous system in sympathetic overdrive. So all the things I just talked about are really great ways for you to kind of tune in on your nervous system and give it that love that it needs. Because again, you really can't, you can't pour from an empty cup, but at the same time, you really have to think about these little ways that even though you can handle it, doesn't mean that you should. Just because you could doesn't mean you should. And that's something where, heading into January, thinking about what are you doing too much of is going to help you think about what goals you should set, because you really shouldn't be stacking more things onto your plate if you're already somebody who's got a really full plate. And if you're not, like maybe you're not like some high performance girly who is, getting pulled in all these different directions. Maybe you're in the opposite end. Maybe you're just like kind of vibing with your job. Maybe you don't have a job. Maybe you're still chilling. I don't know, like your financial situation or whatever, but maybe you're comfortable and you're not so stressed. But maybe you're in a state where you're not motivated and you want to move forward with something. That is still a great area for you to explore, is kind of think about where in your life are you not expressing yourself creatively enough, or where are you not expanding in your life in ways that you really want. Like maybe you need to consider getting out of your comfort zone and joining a hobby and making new friends, and going in a direction and going out of your comfort zone is going to always help you grow, as long as it's aligned with what you're really interested in and what feels good. You know what I mean? Well, it doesn't always have to feel good, because honestly, a lot of growth feels really uncomfortable, and a lot of people never grow because it is so uncomfortable. But when you come up to that space, that is going to be one of those moments when this winter season ends and we shift into spring and things can blossom. Like that's a great time to do that. So set yourself up in the winter. Think about all those things that you really want to explore. Maybe you're like, shoot, I'm going to try pickleball. Who cares? Like a lot of people talk crap about pickleball. It's really fun though. So like maybe you're like, I want to meet more people. I want to be more active. I'm going to get off the couch come spring and I'm going to sign myself up. I'm going to research right now in winter while it's more of a chill season, and I'm going to go find somewhere to sign up for pickleball, or sign up for a class where I can consistently show up for yoga every week or whatever. Or go to a small group fitness class. If you're somebody who really wants, like I always recommend strength training. Strength training is so important. Maybe it's time for you to just go and do that and sign up for a small group class where it's a little less overwhelming and it's not as expensive as one-on-one. So all to say, the main thing to think about with January and February, even because that is true winter, is that it's not your body's new year. It may be your new year because that's our calendar, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what your body wants to do. March and April, spring, like I was talking about, that's when your biology wants to expand and grow and plant some seeds to take off running in summer and all that kind of stuff. And then we repeat the cycle again. That's supernatural. That's not weakness. I know a lot of us have been taught that that's weakness. So think about January being about your foundations for this year, not some crazy fitness goals or food, nutrition, major changes or anything like that. Okay. And actually, your body has a built-in new year that does happen way more often than once a year. So let's talk about your cycle next. So this part of the section of this chat today is really oriented towards my cycling ladies. So everybody who still is having menses, you're still having a period, or you could, this is definitely a lot more meant for those who are naturally cycling, because you're going to be experiencing these more in real time. People who are on birth control and not naturally cycling, even if you take, the sugar pills and get the ghost period, it's not going to feel exactly the same. Some people have such strong ovulations that they can feel all of these changes even though they're on birth control. So whatever it is, just know that most of what this section is for those who are still cycling. So if you're somebody who's not cycling, you can just skip to the next chapter. But this one is just really important. I wanted to kind of just check in with you and help you think about this new year that's happening every single month with your menstrual cycle, because a lot of us kind of underestimate how we can use that as a superpower to some extent. So your cycle, just to kind of remind you, is split into two phases, two major phases. It's technically four little major points going on in it, but follicular phase and then your luteal phase. Follicular phase is your actual new year. It's when you are post-period, pre-ovulation, your estrogen is rising, you have more energy, more optimism, more clarity, a lot more motivation typically. And that's when your brain is the sharpest and your mood is more stable and your body really does want to take action. So this is biologically what we would consider your spring, so to speak. And that's the time to initiate, launch, create, have hard conversations with loved ones or friends and make decisions, because that's going to be a better time for you to do those things. So if you're going to set a goal or start something new, look if you're not cycle tracking, you should be cycle tracking. I tell this to everybody, especially if you're naturally cycling and you're not like on birth control or any hormones that'll alter your cycle. You should always be cycle tracking. And that can be just as simple as using any tracking app and logging when you have your period, like your first bleed day. Just do that. You don't have to do all the other fancy schmancy things, although those things can really improve like your algorithm, like for flow. It's really nice to be able to add little notes here and there because for me, I like to look back and be like, hey, like, did I feel this way around this time of my cycle last month? Because it's all insight. Your report card is like a health report on how you did that month. And so really paying attention to it, it's not actually, I don't find it to be boring. Some people are just like, oh my gosh, I just forget all the time. But you really should take inventory on or just be more insightful about your cycle if you really want to master your health in reality, you know? So if you're going to start something new, your follicular phase, the first half of your cycle, that's your best time. Your luteal phase, sometimes they call it your menstrual phase, is going, well, your luteal phase is kind of before your menstrual because your menstrual phase is going to be when you bleed. But setting goals during your luteal phase is going to feel like you're swimming upstream because you're going to be tired, you're going to be moody, there's going to be, a lot more slower energy. It's basically like your winter and fall. So you are more inward and reflective and all that jazz because menstruation, is essentially and literally shedding, releasing, resetting. And so that's why it's not a great time to build something or launch something or start some new venture during that phase if you want to do it the best you can. Of course, people do it all the time. I've done crazy work weeks training people and launching things for my business all month long. But will I say that it was like fine? Not really. There's definitely times where I've been like, yeah, I could have done way better if I did this in my follicular phase. So tuning into your body this month, like where are you right now in your cycle? Like how can you optimize what you're thinking about doing based on your cycle? So a lot of times like luteal phase, a lot of us want to do more exercise and do more things not luteal, your follicular. In your follicular phase, you want to do more things and build more and all that stuff. And then in your luteal phase, you want to kind of like rest and recover. So for me, sometimes like I will just do a lot more yoga and do more stretching and do more walks, like low intensity steady state walks with my dog, do more sauna time, etc. And then my follicular phase is where I'm like, all right, we're going to lift heavier. We're going to just lift more consistently, all those things. So this is something that I just wanted to pop into this conversation is to think about that a little bit more in this month of January for planning instead of doing, because you do kind of want to think of winter as your luteal phase. It's an extended luteal phase permission slip, so to speak. And so think about it more like that so that you can get more out of rest and planning because they are productive. They are super productive. It's not lazy. It's very strategic. And it can be a game changer for a lot of women across the nation. So I just wanted to invite you to think about that a little bit more. All right, so let's kind of move into this final little section of this chat today, where I wanted to talk a bit about hormone honoring and for your goals and a framework for that. So kind of like I have talked about a bit so far, setting up your framework while you're in this planning phase is going to be a lot more about building the goals that your body can actually sustain, not just goals that sound good on paper. So a lot of goal setting ignores whether your body has like the capacity to support what you're asking of it. I actually have dealt with this for the over a decade I've had working one-on-one with clients of all ages, shapes and sizes, sexes, etc. And pretty much always when we first meet, like the first ever time that we meet, they set all these crazy goals because they're pretty much goals that society tells you to do. So I need to lose 20 pounds. Why? Do you know what 20 pounds off you looks like? Or is that just because we've heard 20 pounds all the time? Or I need to do keto and I need to put on this 10, 15 pounds of muscle or something. Okay, well, it's going to be very hard to build muscle on keto. So can we work on putting the muscle on while, we could still recomposition and lose weight, but we just wouldn't probably be following keto. We'd probably be following a different diet style. And so things like that where, it is helpful when you have somebody like a coach to help you kind of get more realistic. But it's really not too hard to reflect on your current lifestyle and think about, like, realistically, if I want to get to, let's say you're female and you want to get to like 25% body fat or something like that, and you're currently almost 40% or something. A standard body fat percentage for females, by the way, is going to be between 32% and 40%. That's a very standard and generally healthy body fat percentage. We think that we need to be in the 20s to be healthy, but in reality, that's pretty not realistic. And it also looks different on every body type, and it can mean a lot more sacrifice. And so, Jeff Nippard, a YouTuber who is big in the nutrition and fitness space, he did a really great video recently. I would recommend you go to his YouTube and check out the body composition video he did, because it really helps bring to perspective different body percentages and what they look like and whether or not like one is healthier than the other, etc. But all to say, when you're thinking about goal setting in that sense, like I like to set body composition goals for my clients, because body composition is a lot more important and healthier than pounds. When you go for pounds, you could be losing muscle too. And we want to maintain as much muscle as possible and shed excess fat, because that's generally where we're going to see more of the physique we want, but maintain vitality. Because if you just try to starve yourself and lose all the weight, I mean, we've seen the Ozempic bodies now, right? We have seen so many celebrities right now go through, I mean, and even not celebrities, you can kind of tell nowadays when you see a woman who looks bone skinny, her butt is a complete pancake now because she's lost all of her muscle. Personally, for me, I don't see that as healthy. Sure, she can fit into smaller sizes of clothes and all of that, but it's also why we see a lot of hair fall out. We see like crepey, weak skin, and again, no muscle tone. And that is not healthy. That is a body that is probably higher at risk sooner for osteoporosis and such, especially for females, and probably hypothyroid and a whole slew of other issues that come with being underweight, undernourished, and just plain and simply like low on muscle. And we need that. We really need muscle. We really need nourishment. We need to absorb the nutrients from our food. And unfortunately, long-term GLP-1 use does tend to cause that for a lot of women, because many women have gone into using these therapies with eating disordered mindsets. And unfortunately, I've talked about that in the past on some of my GLP-1 therapy, semaglutide, Ozempic episodes, where it's so important for you to talk to or be working with somebody who can help you with your relationship to food if you are somebody who has struggled in the past with an eating disorder, because it is not the therapy for you if that is the case. Because, ultimately I care about your longevity and your health, and that is very not supportive of health. But that was a semi-side tangent, but it's also important because I think it's important to remember for a lot of my women listening that you being healthier and new year, new me does not necessarily mean you need to go on Ozempic or something like that. Because a lot of times, you can stack that in healthfully. You can try to follow like a microdose protocol to kind of help with your inflammation and your appetite craziness. But you definitely need to be working with a practitioner who can help you guide and navigate those waters, because they are very specific and it can get out of hand really fast if you are not careful. And so it's really important to think about that when you're thinking about those winter goals and what you want to do. So you're probably going to be inundated with a lot of advertising about like, oh, new year, new you, new body, get onto a GLP-1 medication, and be very intentional about how you move forward with that advertising, because it can get in your head. It can make you feel not enough. I mean, unfortunately, the weight loss industry is like that altogether. But if you can focus mostly on nourishing your body, getting back into some movement routine, hydrating well, sleeping well, you're going to get a lot closer to that body that you really want faster and more healthfully. Okay. But so mineral repletion, make sure that you do that in the mornings. Nervous system capacity building. So working on vagal tone exercises, breath work, saying no often, like we were talking about earlier. They're not necessarily sexy, but they are the foundation that lets you actually execute on those big goals later without burning out, because our whole goal is to not burn out, right? And another shift that you can think about with your cycle mapping is trying to get more tactical about when you do certain things based on your cycle phase. So for me, I actually have in my Google Calendar, I've put in like I know my general cycle length, so I've put in a chunk of like the 4 days of when I should be on. I just have it in my calendar as Shark Week. And so I know when I'm going to be on my cycle, at least generally close to it. That's kind of a little hack for those of you who are cycling naturally and use like Google Calendar or whatnot. I personally don't know how people can operate in life without using Google Calendar, but I am more of a type A type person. So if you're not somebody who uses like a Google Calendar or something like that, maybe find a way to like put it, if you do like, I can't remember what that like paper journal is called, where some creative types like to do bullet journals. If you do bullet journals, you can put it into your bullet journal. Or if you are somebody who uses like calendars on your fridge, you can also find a clever way to just highlight with like a red highlighter or something like that, like the days that are going to be on your cycle possibly. Again, why using like a tracking app that has a really smart algorithm that can help you predict your cycle after you log like 2 or 3 cycles is going to help you with this part of trying to pair your cycle with your output in your week, because that can be really, really important. So follicular phase, which is the phase right as you bleed, do your big launches, do content creation, batching, do tough conversations, do interviews or networking or career things, bigger family things that'll take more energy with your family, like trips or things like that. Even during your ovulation, that's going to be like when you are going to feel your best, and you usually look your best. Like your face looks the most attractive hormonally during ovulation. It's a total thing. And so anything requiring like that peak communication and charisma and all that stuff is best on your ovulation chunk of those little 3 days around. Usually it's like day 14 through 17 or so for a lot of people. And then in your luteal phase, that's when you shift into more like administration type work and editing and reviewing and refining and internal strategy or resting and reflection and all that. And then menstrual phase, when you are about in bleed phase, is when you do full rest, reflection, and just let yourself be slower. So that's kind of like a good little map for how you can think about your cycle. And you can kind of pause that section and go back to it if you feel like you want to reflect on that energy for yourself and what you can optimize with this year and kind of putting that into action, because January is a great time for you to start playing in with your cycle a lot better. And the last thing that I want to add is that your capacity has to be over your ambition. So it is great to be ambitious, but is your capacity there? A lot of people don't know how to assess if their body is actually able to support their goals with what they want to do. So is your blood sugar stable, or are you riding a roller coaster all day? If it's unstable, you're going to feel hangry throughout the day. You literally will not have capacity for big stress. So a great way to balance your blood sugar is focusing on enough calories in like my well-rounded meals concept, where you have good quality protein, healthy fats, fiber, and enough hydration throughout your day, 3 or 4 meals a day. Usually I would say for most adult females, your breakfast, lunch, and dinner should not be less than 500 calories. It ideally could be closer to like 650 or 800 calories. Depends on how active you are, how tall you are, etc. I have resources on my website for you on that. There are some really easy ways to learn that. You can also just look up a total daily energy expenditure calculator online and get a better idea of like how you should be making very well balanced meals throughout your day, and that's going to really immediately help your blood sugar. You should not be just trying to eat as minimal as possible all day long, because you're going to be looking down the barrel at hypothyroidism and a lot of different frailty issues with being undernourished in your 50s plus zone. So I highly recommend you always look to go through phases in life, which, again, winter is a great time to be well nourished. Eat to maintenance. Don't eat at a deficit constantly, chronically your whole life. Many of us are constantly dieting because that's what was example to us from our mothers and things who were just products of diet culture. You should be eating enough calories that are well nourishing throughout your day, every single day. And for periods of time. Ideally more people should be living in maintenance and go into small chapters of a month or two where they go into a deficit or something if things get out of hand or whatever. They should not be eating in chronic surplus, overeating constantly, and should really not be eating in chronic deficit. We should always be eating consistently in maintenance and then go into phases where we do those other things for whatever reason. Okay, so that's something that maybe you've never heard before. Maybe you've not heard somebody tell you that you should not be chronically dieting. And a lot of people eat like birds and they don't realize it. So if you've never done a food logging week or something like that before, log your food as you would normally be eating it for a whole week on MyFitnessPal or something for free, and really observe, like, how many calories are you getting? Are you overeating your carbs and your fats and not eating enough protein? Because I would stand to bet as a nutritionist for the last 10 years, most women are under eating protein and overeating carbs and fat. So that would be the best way for you to stabilize your blood sugar naturally and get your hormones happier. A lot of times it's not magic pills or anything like that. It's just eating enough and consistently. Okay. And again, like I said before, sleeping is really important. So there's no magic wand besides getting that stuff nailed down. So if that's maybe one of the best things that you could set yourself up with as a New Year's resolution is nailing down consistent food and eating enough and being well nourished and sleeping better, that's going to be a game changer for your life. Honestly, it sounds boring, but it is really, really, really important. All right, guys. So I just want to close out this episode reminding you that, it is okay to rest and in this chapter of winter. And it's okay if you don't start your year off super strong. Frankly, a pattern I used to see as a trainer when I worked in the general gym space, where I saw a lot more bodies in the gym because the latter half of my career was all private training. So it was very, not big box gymmy. But big box gyms always used to get crazy January 1st, as we all expect, and then massive die-off. And then the real people who tend to stick through fitness goals would start in March. And I think that there's something really important to that lesson that could be that is just when the body is actually ready to go through that level of activity and energy expenditure again. I always would get people wanted to get back into some sort of nutrition routine or fitness routine in March or April. People ask me all the time, oh, are you going to get a huge spike in business in January? And I'm like, not really. It actually hits in March and April. And so if you want to be one of those people who actually can really keep a health routine or goal, let yourself rest through January and February. That's totally okay. Get back into some movement routine and do all the things that we already talked about in this episode. But it's okay if you go with what feels right. And what feels right is likely starting all of that in spring. And I think that's probably your best bet when it comes to generic New Year's resolutions, when it comes to your health, because that's what we really aren't talking about enough. And we always feel shame about like coming into the new year and not doing anything better and not feeling like we can get into this crazy routine and stick to it and yada, yada. So your body's not broken for not having that January 1st energy, okay? Your body is really smart and very intuitive, and you just have to tune into it and start setting goals that actually honor that, all right? So celebrate your strength and nourishment, walk with confidence, and I will catch you on another episode of Rebel Wellness in a few weeks. And I hope you have an amazing year ahead. All right, Rebel, that's another episode in the books. If you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, this actually makes sense now, do me a favor, screenshot this episode, tag me at Kaylee Loren or at Rebel Wellness Podcast on Instagram, and tell me which piece hit different. Your aha moments literally make my entire week. Want more of this energy? Jump on my newsletter where I spill the tea on everything from blood work interpretation to why your cravings aren't a character flaw. It's the unfiltered stuff that would make this episode 3 hours long. So if you want more of that, join our newsletter on my website, coachkales.com. And listen, if this show is becoming your weekly dose of someone finally gets it, please smash that 5-star rating on Spotify, or please drop us a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps us grow and expand and share more education with more women like you who need it. You know, it's really important that we support our sisters. Real talk though, disclaimer time, I'm dropping knowledge, not prescriptions. Everything here is educational. I'm not diagnosing, treating, or replacing your healthcare team. Think of me as your research-obsessed bestie who happens to know a lot more about hormones, gut health, and all the good stuff than your hairdresser or that random health guru that you're not quite sure if you should trust her background. Keep questioning the status quo, keep trusting your body's wisdom, and keep showing up for yourself. You're doing better than you think, and I'll be right here cheering you on. Catch you next week.